have to say these things out loud to make sure I'm doing everything correctly. Almost live on YouTube. Okay, I think we're live now. Perfect. So now I'm going to go ahead and click the big, wait, are you all ready?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
Cool. All right, great. So I'm going to record to the beautiful cloud here. Awesome. Okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to another Office Hours live event here with PowerToFly. My name is Marielle. I'm super excited to host 45 minutes of, roundtable discussion on our theme today, which is something that I personally relate to. So we're talking about living abroad, and we have some folks who have joined us live. So I just want to say, now's your time to turn your cameras on. I'm going to sound like a broken record though and invite you all the time to turn your cameras on, to unmute yourselves. I put everyone on mute just to avoid any background noises, but we want to hear from you. I'm going to, give the mic to our guest speakers today, but I'm sure that everyone has some questions or things that they want to ask. So I'll lead us with some questions. And then if you want to drop anything in the chat box, feel free to drop in the chat box. I'll have my eyes on it, but we've got two awesome guest speakers who will also be able to, answer your questions in the chat box or lift their voices up and share here live with us. So with that said, if you all want to just start using the chat box now and let me know where you're calling from. So I'm calling from Buenos Aires. One of our guest speakers, Lydia, here is calling from Buenos Aires as well. And then Brinley is in the States. You're in Michigan, right, Brinley? Normally she's in Argentina.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, great. So we got San Francisco on the line representing. Go ahead, and everyone else, if you're, okay, Tucson, Arizona, perfect. So if you're just joining us, feel free to drop in the chat box where you're calling from. And then let's dive right into this because I'm excited to hear what you all are going to share today. So, hi Lydia, hi Brinley.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, great. I want to make sure that that everyone hears your voice. So basically, I have a little description of the two of you, but I'm just going to pass the mic to both of you all and let you all introduce yourselves, and then, let us know. I love asking everyone on Chat and Learns this, but let us know why you're working at PowerToFly. How did you come to learn about PowerToFly? And then what you're excited to share with us today. And then I'll go into some of these questions that we have offline here. So Lydia, you want to start first?
Oh, sure, I'll start first. All right, so hello everyone. My name's Lydia, and I am originally from California, but I've been living in Argentina for 2 years now. And I started with PowerToFly actually earlier this year, and I feel like PowerToFly found me through a friend because it's just an amazing company. I love what we're doing. It's very aligned with who I am and what I want in the world. And I am really excited to be here and to share thoughts and ideas for anybody who's interested in living abroad, because I honestly, this is, for my family and friends, this is the one thing that I always recommend, like to change your scenery, change your perspective, and just like go for it, because it's just the greatest lesson, the greatest way that you can learn more about yourself and about the world. So I'm just excited.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you, Lydia. All right, Brinley.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Brinley. I echo everything Lydia just said about PowerToFly, about living abroad, but we'll get into that. I am originally from Pittsburgh. I see someone in the chat who's also from Pittsburgh. Hey, that's awesome. I love finding Pittsburgh people all over the world. I've run into many Pittsburgh people in Argentina, actually. And I have also been living in Argentina for the past 4 years until I got stuck in Mexico City from the pandemic. So I pretty much moved to Mexico City unexpectedly, and now I'm in Michigan for the summer. So it's awesome to meet all of you. I'm excited to dig into our conversation, and PowerToFly has definitely changed my life, but I think more than that, it's given me the opportunity to live abroad, which has been, the best part of my life, I think, thus far. So excited to talk about it.
Nice. I love that you left that really open-ended. So I want to come at both of you with this question. Feel free to chime in whenever. So what do you think is the most valuable thing about living abroad? And you all have kind of mentioned this in your introduction, so feel free to dive in deeper there.
Yeah, Lydia, I guess I can go for that. There's so many things that I think are valuable about living abroad, and I think the firstly we have to recognize the privilege that we've had to be able to live abroad. I mean, I think it's interesting, right? You read about how some populations of people are considered immigrants and others are considered expats. And, we're self-identifying as expats, and that comes with a lot of privilege. So I just want to make that kind of disclaimer right there. But having the privilege to be able to live abroad, I think the most valuable thing about that is challenging yourself to live in a completely new place with completely different norms and habits that you might be used to. Like Argentina, for example, quite a European place to live, but really different than the States in a lot of kind of very intricate ways. So I think just getting yourself out of your comfort zone and really growing as a person because you have to just do the thing. That's one of the most valuable things for me, I think. And I think the other part of it too, for me, is just getting to know different people and different cultures. I feel really strongly that, many of us have more in common than we realize. And the more that I travel, the more my mind is just open to new experiences and different ways of living and different ways of thinking about things. So that's just been super, super valuable in my experience.
Yes, I love that. And I would say, I know that a lot of us, I especially feel this way, feel like, we're being confined and it's really challenging, especially as a person who loves to just, be free in the world. And so not to keep anyone feeling discouraged, it's like, okay, make this time your planning time, right? So when things do open, where do you want to go? I definitely echo some things that Brinley has said as well. I love that you first flagged that this is a privilege and to respect it at that extent. And, that also brings some social awareness and hopefully, some social activism with just you being present in another place. So thank you so much, Brinley. I love the way you think.
Totally.
Um, and so let's pass the mic to Lydia. Lydia, what do you have to say? I know that you probably echo some of the same things as well, but I would love to hear from you. What is the most valuable thing about living abroad?
Yes, also echoing a lot of what Brinley said, and also I'm really glad that this opportunity also made me understand like even my privilege, like even like as a Latino woman from California, like seeing it even more when I'm out of the US, like knowing like with everything that comes with that. And I just, wow, there's so much with living abroad, like so many things I don't know, honestly, for me, it always feels like right now with COVID, obviously the situation's different here, but just like on a normal day, like walking around this new city, like everything new, like all the interactions with strangers and people, and it just feels like I'm learning, like I'm in school, but like this is my type of school, like this is how I really take in information, and I feel that my opinion about everything changes constantly, and it's great. Like I feel like everything I've learned I'm unlearning, and it would not be possible without this opportunity, and it's just so much. And Mariela, what also do you find, because I know you're also have been living in Argentina for couple of years, even more, I think.
Yeah, thank you. Nice passing of the mic, Lydia. I'm so happy to share my perspective. Thank you for inviting me to join the convo with you all. Yeah, I mean, you all said it in a nutshell, like educating yourself from a different perspective, that has been completely valuable, like breaking down walls that our society, and I say our, coming from the States, but I know that we have some folks from different places in the world joining, so I'd love to also hear your opinions as well. But I'm sure that wherever our motherlands are, it helps us construct this way of seeing the world, and then you step outside of that and you have to figure out how to burn that down and plant some seeds that help you see the world in a different way. So opening my vision, I would say, which has a lot of what you all are saying, being being willing to get uncomfortable, because it is very uncomfortable, and especially when there's another language, or if there's another if there's some way that you can share your voice that maybe you weren't given a chance to in the States, for in our case, to share your voice, and how to feel empowered and also humbled in those situations. So I definitely feel like have transformed a lot. The first time I came to, actually my first time going outside of the country was in '09, and I came to Argentina to study. Not to put an age on me, age ain't nothing but a number. Let's talk lifetimes. I feel like this is just a place to continue developing myself as a creative person as well, just because of the history of Argentina and how I have seen makes a lot of native Argentine folks approach life in a way that like they have to be creative, because certain things have happened where literally things change the next day. And so when I'm communing with people who are like artists, for example, here, and there are artists from all over the world that are in Buenos Aires, it really allows for this really fertile, potent, creative space that I know that you all probably feel as you're working as well. So you bring that into your work, and that helps bring a different perspective. And I love that, you're able to put that into diversity and inclusion initiatives as well, because you are thinking outside of the box. So yeah, talking about value, it's that, just opening the vision, kind of taking the blinders off, and also being willing to grow within oneself. So thank you for letting me share that. I see that folks have written in the chat box where they're calling from. I'm just going to give you a shout out. If you're just joining us, feel free to drop in the chat box. So we've got New York on the line, California, Bulgaria, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Columbus, Ohio, Tucson, Arizona, San Francisco, Texas. Awesome. So feel free to use this chat box. I'm going to go ahead and go to another question that you all have submitted offline. So let's jump into, I love, Lydia, that you were talking about this being a school, kind of, educating yourself in different ways outside of the institutional way of education. So let's jump into work now. So this is a combo question. Feel free to pick it up, either one of you all. So in addition to working remotely and living abroad, working abroad for a company that has offices overseas, or working for a foreign company, what other options are there? And this person has written, I'm not interested in being an au pair or teaching English. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there are other ways of doing that. I would also consider work exchanges. So Lydia, do you want to start off on that response?
Sure. It's funny you say that, because I actually came to Argentina to teach English, and I learned that about Brinley as well. And I honestly would not discourage it, because it's a great way to meet people, local people, and connect with them, like really connect with them. One of my now friends and previous students is also on the line. Shout out to Paula.
Thank you.
Thank you for supporting. And but aside from teaching, my world also opened up about the possibilities of remote work and the community that's out there for remote workers as well. There are so many Facebook groups, so many groups where people are asking, like, constantly, like, hey, I want to leave my job, my 8 to 5 job in the States or wherever they're from. And what steps should I take? What should I learn? What are the best skills? And in these communities, in these groups, like, everyone's jumping in there and giving advice, and so supportive and sharing ideas. So there's so much. There's a lot of remote work out there. Like, PowerToFly also offers a lot of great resources for remote work. So I would just say, just start like connecting. I'm also happy to share some of the links. So feel free to connect with any one of us on LinkedIn, and we will, I know all three of us, I'll speak for all three of us, but I know we would be so happy to help you, to guide you, to share any resources that have helped us. But yeah, Brinley, I think you might have something to say, add as well.
Yeah, totally. I think I agree personally that, like, joining remote first companies is kind of the way that I've decided that I want to live my life abroad, right? Like, you can freelance or kind of start your own like consulting business depending on what your skill set is. But I like personally having the kind of structure and non-structure of working for a remote company that lets me be anywhere that I want to be. But in addition to that, and in addition to teaching English, there are a lot of corporations in the States that, you can join kind of as, a corporate employee and potentially do like an assignment abroad. I've never done that personally, but I know just tons and tons of people out there do that. Lots of big consulting firms, or like I said, other kind of corporations or multinational companies that you can potentially start in the States and then be transferred abroad. Um, and then in general, I also wouldn't discourage you to, consider teaching English, but there are some other programs, like there are, MBA programs that you can do in Mexico, for example, that then, help you find a job in Mexico after you get your MBA. There's a program called Princeton in Latin America that kind of matches you with an NGO of sorts in a country in Latin America. So there are like more program-based things that can kind of help you get a foot in the door. So there are a lot of options. And like Lydia said, I'm not being super specific, but the three of us would be happy to, share any resources. And I think it depends on your background, your skill set, and what kind of, how much structure you like or not. But I think it's definitely possible in a variety of different ways.
Totally. And how you mentioned in the beginning, Brinley, just how willing you are to get a little uncomfortable to find your new comfort. And I love to hear these stories of people who do complete like career pivots, and they go from being in the financial world and they come to teach English, and then that just opens up a whole new world for them. And you really see energetically, like they're like on a high frequency, and they will tell you themselves, like, I used to just be like in the office or like kind of worrying about these things that weren't necessarily good for me, and just getting a different perspective definitely does help. I've seen it, and I know you all have seen it as well. And people, I feel it personally. So that's like, case study. You got 3 case studies here on the phone with you all. So I see that someone here has written a question that also coincides with something I was going to ask. So I'll ask the two together, and let's see who can answer this first, Lydia or Brinley. So any advice for appropriate visas if you're planning to maintain a remote job with your home country? And then Annie here has written in the chat box, how do you manage to live abroad without work sponsorship?
Lydia, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can answer a general, answer. It honestly depends on the country that you want to live in, because everyone has different requirements and different like tourist visa, also like lengths. And I've heard from friends, like I have a friend who moved to Germany, and he was traveling the world, and then he ended up in Germany and applied for jobs there while he was there for a long time, and then got his visa sponsorship. So I think if you want to just live abroad, or you have a specific country in mind, like research it, see what they offer, and like there are so many resources again that I can share as well, like links to great websites that talk about each country's requirements and how they support you with that. Argentina is very here. There is like a tourist visa of 3 months, and it's more flexible in terms of like when people come in and out. And I've also met a lot of friends here who got jobs while teaching English or doing different, choosing different paths, and they were sponsored by the company while they were already here. So it's a difficult question to really answer, because every country varies, and it really depends where you want to live.
Great. Brinley, you want to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, totally. I think along the lines of what Lydia was saying, in Argentina, the way that I personally did it was actually by finding somewhere to go to school, just kind of like a certificate program. And even if it's just like a year long, that's usually a good way to just, give yourself a reason for the immigration, department or whatever to grant you residency for that time period. So that's how I did it. And then, in Latin America in general, but particularly in Buenos Aires, being a high level or fluent English speaker or native English speaker is a super valuable skill. So I have friends, who were living in Argentina from the States and from Canada who joined Argentinian companies and were sponsored, like Lydia was saying, for their residency. So it's definitely doable. And I think another thing too, if you do go to Argentina and you have to kind of live off of the tourist visa, it's pretty easy to do so. It's kind of like a running joke among the expat community that everyone's just like living on their tourist visa, and they take a ferry to Uruguay every 3 months, and then kind of renew their tourist visa from there. It can get expensive, but I think it's definitely doable, especially if you want to continue traveling.
Yeah, I think it's also, both of you all have mentioned about finding the loopholes and finding the way that you connect, right, with the place. And that's something that you don't realize it when it's your native tongue as far as speaking English is concerned, or if it's, you are a high level English speaker, that it is a way to, one, give a resource, maybe also find work out of it, and then then go from there. I have some friends as well who they start in different countries and then they figure out, okay, I want to go to another country, and they pick up and go remote there. And and the way that I see them doing that, which is what I would encourage everyone to do if you're interested, is to start talking about it. Start talking about it, and then people might be like, oh, I have a friend in Germany and this is what they did. And that's actually what led me here when I decided to move here. Someone here wrote in the chat box for Lydia and me, and Brinley is based technically in Argentina, but she's just in the States right now. So I'm going to also pass the mic to Brinley on this one. How did we choose to live abroad in Argentina? And then how long are we planning to stay here? Has COVID made us more or less likely to continue living abroad? These are great questions. Thank you for submitting that. So my story is that, thanks to Melinda and Bill Gates, I got a scholarship to study for 5 years. And so I finished my degree in 4 years, and I had this extra year, and I was like, well, I want to make use of this. So I decided to study for a year. And I came to Buenos Aires. I walked into the study abroad office and was like, where do I go? And everyone was like, go to UGA in Buenos Aires. Like, that's the place. So I started doing my research and I went, had a great time, went to Spain after that, graduated, moved back to LA. I was born in Los Angeles. And I was kind of like, actually, you should watch this chat series that I'm hosting about taking back the Black narratives and the Black experience. And I spoke about Hollywood and just like branding and all these things. I got fed up with Hollywood basically, and I wanted to travel again. So my sister was like, why don't you come to Houston, save some money, and then like you can figure out what you want to do. So I just started talking about it. I want to go back to Argentina. I want to go back to Argentina, but I want to find a way, like Brinley said, some people decide to go to let like education or let a program be like the vessel. I also know people who just pick up and go, they sell their stuff and they go. My way was that, Brinley, I was like, okay, I want to be there for a year. Let me find a program that is out, as a woman outside of college, how can I, mesh with the different culture? And so I found that the more that I started speaking about it and putting it out in the universe and speaking it amongst my friends, a good friend of mine was like, hey, this guy that I work with did this program in Buenos Aires 3 years ago. Here's the email of this person. It was just like, basically just instead of keeping it inside and making it a wish, like activating that by speaking about it. And then I found this great program. I was supposed to do it for a year and then go back to graduate school. Graduate school never happened yet. I'm still in Argentina since 2012. And that's a little bit about my story. And I'll say that COVID hasn't made me less likely to want to live abroad. If anything, it makes me just want to create more social awareness and mindfulness so that, this situation doesn't have to be, doesn't have to happen again, and it doesn't have to restrict the world from getting to know each other. And well, that's what I'll say about that. Lydia, do you want to chime in?
Yeah. So honestly, I don't know. I think Argentina found me again. No, I had visited Argentina years before I chose to come here. And I had such a different idea of Argentina because I came as a tourist, right? I came for 2 weeks. I was doing very touristy things. Didn't really, I couch surfed, so I met some people here. But I didn't really get to know the culture. And then I don't know why, I just chose Argentina. And I did also a teaching certification program in order to teach English here. And I kept extending my stay, which is a very similar story that I've heard from a lot of people here. I just kept saying, just a couple more months, a couple more months, a couple more months. And it was, I just connected so well with the country, with the culture, with the people. And it's a very warm culture too. So, coming from the States, like when you see that, when you feel that, like it's hard to leave that. Like, it just feels more connected with like strangers in the streets, just the way they look at you, the way they talk to you, like it doesn't feel like strangers. And I was just the first times that happened, I was shocked, and I was like, this is weird, like what's going on, what's happening here? And then I noticed it was just the culture, and I realized it was the kind of culture that I want to be in. It's the kind of like life I want to live. And I don't know how long. No, I don't know. I'm definitely going back for some time because my brother's having a baby and I want to be there.
Aw, congrats.
Family is also super important, of course, and that's the difficult part about being abroad. But I do want to come back. I want to be here for a longer time. And COVID has not stopped me from wanting to travel and live abroad. Again, like same as Mariella, like it makes me want to learn more about other countries. And I think a lot of us are disappointed with what's happening in the States, and I just want to be more and more open, more understanding of other cultures and people. And honestly, this is what works for me. So I want to continue on that path.
Yes, awesome. Okay, Brindley, I would love to hear from you as well. And then can you also talk about, I know that you are currently in the situation, this is something I didn't even know was a thing, but you're talking about, Lydia, getting to know this new culture and having that, embrace you in this way that maybe your motherland didn't. And as I started going back to the States for extended periods of time, I realized that there's a thing called, that I don't know, a concept that I felt in my bones, and so surely it has to exist, reverse culture shock. So
yeah.
Brindley, can you chime in, because you're currently back in the States after being in Argentina for a little bit of time.
Totally.
Go ahead and answer that question above, and then if you can lead us into some reverse culture shock.
I would love to, yeah. And thanks for the questions, everybody in the chat. So I chose to live in Argentina for similar reasons as Mariella and Lydia. I studied abroad for 6 months in Argentina when I was in college. Totally, fell in love with it. And I was like, I have to get back here after graduation. And it was a lot of the same experience as Lydia. Like there was just something about it that made me feel like I really identified with the people and the culture in such a beautiful way that I had never felt in the States, even though it was, as Mariella says, my motherland. So my senior year of college, I was applying to programs, and I was lucky enough to get a grant to go back after graduation to teach English for 1 year. And per that agreement, I actually, similar to you, Mariella, I was supposed to go back to the States. Like they were like, okay, you're going to take the knowledge you learn and you're going to bring it back to the States. And I didn't do that. I knew that this was my window of opportunity. So I started working after teaching English at a small startup, and then I found PowerToFly. And I don't know how long I'm planning to stay there. I have to make it back at some point once, Buenos Aires has lifted the quarantine. But it's hard to say. Like, I want Buenos Aires to be a part of my life, I think forever, and as long as I can maintain this kind of remote first lifestyle that I've built, I would love to spend at least a couple months a year there, forever. Um, and I think COVID also has only increased my desire to continue living abroad, not only because I feel that, the States is just going through so much right now, but also um, I've realized being quarantined, there are so many other places I want to go and so many other things I want to see and so many people I still have to meet. And if anything, it's made me not want to settle down. so, so yeah, hopefully we can all kind of go forth with that and be safe. Um, and then in terms of reverse culture shock, that is it's so real. And the first time I ever experienced reverse culture shock was when I got back from my study abroad, my senior year of college. We were, me and all my friends, we were going out to the famous bar on campus, and I hated it. And I left the night crying because I was like, where am I? And why am I not in Buenos Aires? And I hate this going out culture. And I just want to dance to reggaeton. And, it sounds like a silly example, but I felt so out of place. I felt like I had no idea where my grounding was. And it was weird because, I felt like I had known and grown up in this place for so long. And I only spent 6 months in another place that I felt like became my whole heart. And it was really hard. It was a really hard transition. And it's gotten easier over time. But I think every time I'm back in the States, I feel like I'm like 5 to 10 years behind. Like all my family and cousins have like new technologies. And I'm like, that's how you use an iPhone? Like, I don't know what, I don't know what that is or where, when did that happen? And just the ease of everything. And it's real and it's a lot. And that was a little scattered, but I hope it seems like that resonates at least with you, Mariella and Lydia.
Yeah, totally. Lydia, do you want to piggyback on that question? Reverse culture shock. You want to add anything there?
I mean, I feel it every time I go back, and it's really good because it makes me question everything, and it makes me just like understand it more, like actually like process what's happening or like what we're doing or what we're talking about or what's important. And if it wasn't for this, I would never go there, so it's priceless. It's amazing to have that. And yeah, what you just said, Brittany, like so many people I have to meet still, so many places I have to see. It's so true. Like also living abroad, I think about all the great friends that I've made, and I'm like, wow, if I had not done that, I would have never met this person. And I just, yeah, it makes me think, what else is there? What else can I learn?
Absolutely. It's cool because and these magical stories happen. I mean, Lydia, you're from California. I was born in Los Angeles. I met a guy in Buenos Aires who lived like in my neighborhood in Los Angeles. We never met in Los Angeles, but we met in Buenos Aires, like that, those kind of magical moments. Maybe if I would have met them in LA, we would have just kind of crossed paths and not even talked, but like I consider him like a brother from another mother at this point. And it just like those magical connections happen. Okay, so we've got about 10 minutes left. Time has gone by flying. I hope we have another one of these because clearly, you all have some great questions live and then you have submitted some great questions offline. I do want to tackle Jessica's question here in the chat box. What are some safety precautions that we can take while living and traveling abroad?
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I think I'll chime in on that because I just actually recently traveled, of course. I traveled from Mexico City to the States just a couple weeks ago. And I think, at the most basic level, use a mask and, gloves and take hand sanitizer and wipes. I think just at, again, most basic level of like hygiene, just to protect yourself and others while you're traveling. And of course, keeping your distance from people who might also be traveling. But more than that, I think what's important to note is that if you're planning a trip, to think about where you're going and who you're going to be seeing, because I'm here in Northern Michigan with my family, and it was pretty much just understood that Brinley's going to get off a plane from Mexico and we're going to be quarantining with her for 2 months. So whatever Brinley is bringing off of that plane from Mexico, we're going to have that too. And we're going to have this quarantine circle together. That's, very real and very important to make sure that all of your travel party understands and is okay with. And luckily I'm healthy. I got through my 14 days of quarantine and I didn't get sick. So that's good news for my family as well. And if you are traveling to a place, maybe to see older folks, try and quarantine yourself for at least those 2 weeks before, you expose other people. I'm sure, we've all heard that on the news and from the CDC, but those are just kind of the practices that I've been using. And it's hard. The last thing I'll say, because I know we're running out of time, is that for me, it's been hard to know what's responsible and not. I literally have to remind myself that we're living in a pandemic and it's not black or white. So if you're feeling anguished or undecided or whatever, I think you just have to use your best judgment and what's going to make you feel the most comfortable, but also thinking about the other people that you could be affecting when you're thinking about the actions that you're going to take.
I love that response. Thank you, Brinley. Lydia, can you chime in as well and maybe add a little bit about, how to involve that in maybe your work so that your work-life travel balance happens, just to keep safe there?
How to keep that nice balance between work and travel? So I'll first start with the safety. I wonder if Jessica was also asking about in general when you're trying to move abroad in terms of feeling safe while living and traveling. And I'll just say a little bit about that. Honestly, I felt nervous too, traveling alone. I'm small, I'm small, I'm a woman. I just had every worry, every fear and everything. But I really I mentioned I couch surfed in the past, and when I stayed with people when I was couch surfing, that was amazing because they give you so much advice, they guide you, and you don't necessarily have to stay with them. You can meet up or connect on couch surfing and ask them questions about safety, about traveling. And that's another amazing community where everyone's super supportive. And I mean, when people would email couch surfing in LA, I lived in LA too, Maria. I always jump in there and give advice and share all the knowledge that I know because you just want to help people. And so I would recommend something like that, like just asking people who are from there, and they will help. They want to make their country, or they want you to feel safe while you're traveling in their country. And in terms of a work-life balance, it's funny because before, when I was teaching English, I was really just taking in Buenos Aires and teaching did not seem like a job at all. I felt like I was bonding with my students and learning from them, and teaching is amazing also. It's just such an amazing thing to you learn so much from it, from just teaching. And but now that I'm working at PowerToFly, it's been a little difficult because right when I started, COVID hit here and we went into full-on quarantine, and it has been tough. But now that Buenos Aires is opening up a little bit, I'm taking more walks, I'm scheduling more walks with friends and trying to find ways to get out and enjoy the nice day and just connect in person because, technology is intense right now for most of us, I think. So just finding what works for you, and scheduling it and making time for that.
Yes, thank you, Lydia. And thank you for dropping this in the chat box, Ariana. This is a great point. She writes, as someone who has traveled internationally for work travel, it is important to understand local laws. For example, in Turkey, it can be very dangerous to criticize the government. For guys in Qatar, it is illegal to bring in pornography, etc. So I definitely agree with, in that moment of research and in your curiosity, definitely, find resources, then find multiple resources. Don't just take one and think that that word is bond. Ask, the more word on the street that you can get, the more you might understand, what happens, behind the scenes. I don't know if Brinley, looks like you're nodding your head. Do you want to chime in on that? Just you know, making sure that you can be okay as you're traveling internationally, you know, as a woman, as a person of a different culture, and maybe having different, you know, societal norms. Can you chime in on that, Brinley?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Lydia brought up a point earlier about like these Facebook groups, these travel Facebook groups. And I think as women, those are really great resources to ask people about like what it's actually like there and what we should expect, especially being women. And Mariella, like you said, with lots of countries having kind of different social norms than we might be used to. So I don't think I have anything necessarily to add, but just do as much research as you can. And like you said, Mariella, tell people, you know, you never know in your network who's maybe been the place that you want to go or knows someone who has been there and can tell you firsthand. So yeah, just kind of preparing yourself that way.
Yes. Okay, so we've got about 4 more minutes, and I think this is a great question to end on, since we're talking about, you know, asking people, reaching out, doing some research, educating ourselves. So what's the best way to reach out to new people in a virtual environment? And I'll leave that for both of you to answer, and then we'll wrap up this chat.
So I think the best way is just to be upfront with what you're looking, like the information that you're looking to get out of that person, right? So back when I was still working at a startup in Buenos Aires, and I was actually looking for a remote job, I reached out to a woman who someone had connected me with that like has a consultancy about getting remote jobs. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, you know, this is my goal. This is how I would love to, you know, spend my time talking to you. You know, because you don't want to necessarily like put anybody out, but you also, you know, like want some information from them. So just being like transparent and honest and enthusiastic and giving them, you know, kind of more targeted questions that they can help you with, instead of just being like, hey, I need, you know, I want to travel, tell me what to do, you know, something very specific that you've thought about, and you can be intentional about like wanting to spend time with that person to learn about their experience.
Absolutely. Lydia, you want to chime in?
I think that was a great, it's true, like asking, being more direct with the information that you want to receive. And yeah, so connecting with people virtually. I mean, I think we're all trying to figure out how to connect virtually and it's crazy. But I mean, we're also, I mean, that's one thing, like how lucky we are that we have the internet to be able to connect virtually. Like, you know, imagine if this was years ago, which has happened in the past. But yeah, I would reach out, and I mean, again, feel free to reach out to us. Like, we would love to help, share advice, notes, guide you. And when I came to Buenos Aires, I learned about this group that most of the expats know about in Buenos Aires, and it's called Buenos Aires Girlfriends Group. And it's been amazing. People there also share their knowledge. Like any specific question you have, you can drop it in the comments or in the chat, and everyone jumps in there. Like there's like 50 people answering, and it's amazing. Like everyone wants to support you. And when I went to Bolivia, I went to Bolivia for 2 months, and it was a different experience, but it was beautiful in its own way. But I also found groups, and the groups were not as active. And but after a while, like people connected. You know, they took a little bit longer to connect, but they did. But I mean, if you go somewhere too, why not start it? You know, start that group, like support other women or people too, like men and women, and share your knowledge and start up that connection. I don't know.
Yes. Awesome.
Do you have any advice, Mariella?
Actually, yeah, I was just going to say, just to piggyback on what both of you are saying, feel free to connect with us on LinkedIn. You can ask us more questions. If anyone, it sounds like we're advocating to move to Argentina, which I totally am. If anyone wants to come and visit, I'm sure that between the three of us, we'll happy to host or direct you in the right direction. I see that someone here wrote in the chat that they've visited Patagonia. I'm moving back to Patagonia. And of course, it's beautiful nature there. So, please reach out to us. Don't be afraid. This is your time to connect and start to developing those curiosities. And with that note, I'll just say, I hope that you take some time today to continue your research, everyone, on how you can live abroad, work remotely, be sustainable, be socially responsible, and help us move out of this weird kind of glitch pause that we're in on a global level. And I think that if we are sending those vibes out there by being curious about living in other places and being mindful, that that will help shake it up a little bit. So thank you all for joining us. Time has flown by. Stay tuned. We will be having lots more chat and learns, and we'll have more of these as well. So we'll see you soon. Ciao.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.